What is up, everybody? I'm sure by now you have heard that John Lynch spoke to the media at the combine. He also had a second, more intimate conversation with local beat reporters. We're going to break all of that down. I think there's quite a bit that came from it, but the number one thing that came from it is the 49ers seemingly have money constraints. Found that interesting. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. Really hope all of you are having a fantastic evening. It is great to see you in here. All right. Let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Let's talk about John Lynch and the comments that he had at today's press conference and what have you. But before we get there, I do want to clear something up because I think there's a lot of confusion around the salary cap when it comes to Brandon Ayuk. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is because Diana Rossini reported that there are a lot of teams that are showing interest, or there are teams that are still showing interest in Brandon Ayuk. And I think the way that a lot of people have broken this down has really hasn't done it justice. Getting rid of Brandon Ayuk at this moment actually is not that hard to do from a money standpoint. So the 49ers, if they trade Brandon Ayuk pre-June 1, actually only take an extra $8 million cap hit than what they would to have him on the roster this year. That's not that big of a deal. And then they would be able to forego all the other years on his contract. The reason I bring it up is not only because Diana Rossini reported it, but the injury that Brandon Ayuk had, and then we heard that Tim Kawakami and Matt Barrows said that the 49ers regret signing him. I'm not saying they're going to trade him, but if teams are interested and it's only going to be an extra $8 million to not have him on the roster, but you're going to be able to get out of the rest of that deal I don't even know if you can trade him while he's hurt. I thought by the CBA you couldn't, but maybe there's some special rules in there. I'm not sure. But assuming you can trade him, and if you do it prior to June 1st and it's less than $8 million, less than $8 million extra on top of what you were going to pay him anyways, I think the 49ers would consider that or should consider that. And I was big on Brandon Ayuk being with this team and signing with this team. But now a major injury has happened. And if there's teams that are interested, I don't know, you might want to consider it. I will say this, there was some confusion around that cap number. I know that Spot Rack had it at a like 7.2 million or something like that. And then when I went to over the cap, they had it at like 30 something million, a crazy number. So I went to Twitter and I tagged them both. I said, which one of you is right here? And Jason, shout out to Jason from Over the Cap. He said, "Hey, we've got this wrong actually. Let me update it. Now if you go to their website and you go to trade pre-June 1st Brandon Ayuk, you'll see a number less than $8 million of dead cap on top of obviously what they would pay him. So that's actually not that bad, especially for a contract that technically goes into effect this year. I mean, that's a well-structured deal. I'm sure a deal that they never even thought that they would take advantage of moving on from him. But man, with the injuries, if it's possible, I think you got to consider it. I do. The other thing I want to talk about real quick before we get into what John Lynch had to say is the Brian Greasy stuff. It sounds like nothing nefarious was going on here. They didn't want to move on from Brian Greasy. He always gave them a 3-year commitment, and he decided he doesn't want to coach, which I get. I mean, he had never coached before. Coaching, it's not an easy job, especially if you're not a head coach. He had some interest in interviewing with the Jets, or the Jets had interest in interviewing him for the head coaching position. although they tried to interview everybody under the sun, it seems like. He declined that and then later decided to move on. And the 49ers got Mick Lombardi to replace him and be the new quarterback coach. Not the end of the world. I don't think that that's, going to cause the biggest issues. I mean, shoot, we've seen Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert and Baker Mayfield have pretty good careers, and all of them are consistently changing the offensive coordinator. I think the stat for Baker Mayfield is every single year he's been in the league, he's had a new offensive coordinator. That's crazy. That is crazy. I know that Herbert's had like 4. I think Hurts has had 4 in their short careers. So, and that's play callers. At least Kyle Shanahan is going to stay intact and call the plays. So I think Brock Purdy's going to be fine. But I think early on there was some questions like, why is this happening? Is it because Purdy had a down year? I don't think that ever made sense to me. But now we know the facts, and the facts are Brian Griese just doesn't want to coach anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. So those are the 2 pieces of news I wanted to get to before talking about. Oh, no, not post June 1st, pre June 1st. Man, I want to make sure you hear me loud and clear on this one. If they trade him day 1 of the new league year in March, they only take an extra $8 million cap hit on top of what they would pay him to be on this roster. That is a pre-June 1st trade, not a post-June 1st trade. Remember, I said the 49ers wouldn't pay him anything else. If they traded him post-June 1st, they would take a cap hit next year to do so. This is pre-June 1st, which is crazy. You never see this written into deals ever. So it's not that bad, especially for a guy that's already on a major injury. If teams are interested and you can trade him based off of how the CBA is, which again, I don't know the facts there. Find that interesting. It's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. So appreciate you. Yeah, listen to Kieran. Smart guy. Hit the like button. It's free. It helps out. I appreciate it. All right. Let's get into these conversations here with John Lynch. Now, again, he had 2 separate kind of press conferences. One was open to anybody that is attending the combine. The other one was a private conversation held with local media that happened to be attending the combine. And in both conversations, the overarching theme was there's some money constraints that the 49ers are operating with this year. And not because Jed York can't afford things. It's because Jed York's putting a cap on things, is the way that I understand it. So I'm going to give you what was said and why I believe that this is true based off of what John Lynch had said, along with some other things. So let's go back to the beginning of last season. Before the season started, Grant reported that the 49ers are basically pressed. The front office is pressed with how much money John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan were spending, and that if they didn't win, I think he said something like heads would roll, or I don't remember the details, but the point is that a lot of people laughed that off because I don't know, whatever reason, they don't believe Grant, they don't like Grant, what have you. Well, when you go to just about a week and a half ago, it sounds like, minus the heads rolling portion, that this actually was true, that the front office was not at all happy with the way that the 49ers kind of willy-nilly spent some money last offseason and previous offseasons in general. Tim Kawakami came out. He reported that the front office was not happy with the Ayuk deal, the Debo deal, or the Bosa deal. So that's essentially 3 straight off seasons where they weren't happy with the way that those things went down. And they didn't like potentially the money that was spent up front to get those deals done and how high the 49ers went. Remember, the 49ers at one point let Ayuk reach out to other teams. And he drew interest from multiple teams. It sounds like they were ready to trade him. And then Shanahan said, no, don't trade him. We want to keep him. And so they did. Well, Ayuk didn't perform up to that previous year early on, and then he was injured. And so they're not happy with the way that that went down. So those two things happen. All right. Well, I mean, they're kind of the same. They're both around money. They're both around the 49ers brass not necessarily being the happiest with that. But the way that John Lynch spoke today backs this up 100%. I don't think that this is even debatable anymore. So the first thing was when John Lynch was asked about paying Brock Purdy in that deal, he was adamant that the 49ers are certainly looking to get that deal done. They want Brock to be a part of the team long term. But then he also said there are no guarantees. Okay, well, that's a one-off. We're talking about just the Brock Purdy deal, no big deal. But when he was asked about Brandon Ayuk, and I think the question might have been from Chase, and he asked about, hey, Diana Rossini said that there are teams that are interested in Brandon Ayuk. What are your guys' thoughts here? Yada, yada, yada. And John Lynch talked about that for a second, and then he broke off. And out of nowhere, unprompted, was not asked, brought up the fact that the 49ers had been the fourth highest team as far as cash spending every year since he has been with the 49ers. Number 4 in cash spent. Now, cash spent versus salary spent, those are different things. The 49ers and the Eagles spend the most cash or have as of late, because that's how you can kind of manipulate the salary cap is you spend more cash up front. That allows you to take that signing bonus, spread it out over the course of the contract, and free up some money towards the salary cap. Not all owners are willing to do that. Jed York has been willing to do that. But Lynch brought it up on his own. He brought up the fact that the 49ers were number 4 in cash spending. And then he said, oh, we can't keep spending at that level. We can't continue to spend at that level the way that we have in the past. And we've got to get younger. So basically saying, hey, yes, the team has to get younger. Said, I believe we're the oldest team in the league. But with getting younger, that means you're spending less cash because you're not giving out big time free agent deals. So again, unprompted, brought up the 49ers are the 4th highest cash spending team since he's got there. And we can't continue to spend at that level, is what he said. All right. So that was in front of everybody. Then we get to the private conversation. Once again, he's asked about Brock. And he's clear. No guarantees. We want him here long term. All of that. He said they have their thoughts, meaning Brock and his team. We have our thoughts. But the CBA means that no matter what, he'll be with us. Because he's not a free agent. So unless they decide to trade him, he's going to be a 49er. Then when he was asked about Juice, very similar to the Brandon Ayuk situation, he, on his own, brings up, hey, the question about Juice was, are you going to ask him to take less money again this offseason? You did it last season. What are your thoughts? And he said, hey, we've got to think about everything. His words, we've got tighter constraints than what we've had in the past. We can't keep going and going. We've got to step back and recalibrate. And what he's referring to there is we can't just keep spending money and spending money and spending money. We've got to recalibrate. So twice, unprompted, he lets the whole world know. Now, this is one of two things. Because he did bring up the Brock Purdy conversation as well, and multiple times said, hey, we want him to be here long term, but the CBA allows us to keep him, and there's no guarantees that we'll get it done, but we think we can. This is either all a negotiation tactic to use and leverage against Brock and his agent, which I actually don't believe that that's what's going on here. I don't. I think this negotiation will go pretty smoothly, just because that's the way that Brock is. But we'll see. I mean, who knows? Or the 49ers actually do have tighter constraints and can't keep spending at that level. These were his words. We can't keep spending at that level, and we've got tighter constraints. Two different questions, completely different settings. That's what he said. So when you couple that with what Grant said last offseason, what Tim Kawakami just said a week and a half ago, I think it's pretty clear that Jed York and Prague Marate have come forward and said, no more. You don't just get free reign. They've probably given a salary cap on top of the salary cap, meaning here's how much money is budgeted that you can spend this offseason in free cash to drive these deals however you want. But clearly there is something that has been put in place, whether it's what I'm describing or something else, based off of what John Lynch is saying, based off of what's been reported. It's clear. It is clear. Now, how does that affect things? How does that impact things? I don't know. I will say this, though. I like this from Jed York. And I like it even more if he fully trusts John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan the way that I believe he does, because this means that the 49ers aren't necessarily going to take this all-in crazy approach, spend a bunch of money, try to win this year, and then forego the future. This to me, and in fact, John Lynch said it, hey, we got to figure out how to be competitive now, but we also got to figure out how to be competitive in the future. He also mentioned that, and I think it was during the use check question, he mentioned, you have your core, and then it's about finding not the lesser pieces, but basically like not the superstar pieces, the more inexpensive pieces, and building around your core. And that's what we've got to do this offseason. So this is him also saying, hey, we want to be competitive now, yes, but we're not going to mortgage the future to do that. And we're trying to build the smart way, which is getting younger, which is through the draft, which is by not going all in 2025. That doesn't make any sense. I actually like this. I like that these parameters are put into place by Jed and team. I like that Kyle and John don't just get to free spend however they want, because it's going to force their hand to build this team the right way long term. And if you trust Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and you truly want them to be here long term, then along with that message, and I don't know what's been said for sure, but along with that message, it's, hey, you don't have free reign to spend what you want. You haven't won a Super Bowl. We gave you free reign. You didn't win a Super Bowl. Now we're going to tighten things up a little bit, and we're going to force you to rebuild this thing on the fly. And when we feel like this team is ready or close again, we'll open up the floodgates. But this year is not that year. We're not going to allow you to spend and spend and spend. We want you to rebuild this thing back up. And when we feel like we are close, we will allow you to spend again. I hope that is the true message that has been given. But I think one thing we know for sure, the message is pretty clear. They do not have unlimited money cash-wise in a cash flow sense that they've had in the past. They just don't have it. So I like I said, I find it interesting that John Lynch on his own made sure that we knew on two separate occasions that was the case. All right, let's see what you guys are talking about. Probably because we're one of the worst teams in drafting the last 10 years. Yeah, maybe. They should have listened to you, Jesse, years ago. Yeah, dude. Listen, I wish they would have. But such is life. The window is closed. Okay. Lynch might as well said that the window's closed. Yeah, basically. Yeah, Kittle did say he would kick in the window. He did. I'm here to make sure you kids behave. Well, good, Tommy. The adults in the room. Pay Brock and the window is definitely over. Sounds like Purdy's agent is pushing for Dak deal. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. At least that's what he said behind the scenes. So we'll see. How does Juice's 4 million affect anything? It doesn't. It doesn't really. It truly doesn't. Um, but that's why he took that opportunity to kind of bypass the Juice question and was like, "Hey, we have real constraints that we haven't had in the past." Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? They should have gotten rid of Debo and Juice last year. Agree. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of big time clients, that's for sure. I mean, think about how this happens though. Brock Purdy comes out of the draft, literally the last pick, doesn't have a lot of buzz as far as getting picked high. He's not going to hire Drew Rosenhaus or whoever. He's going to hire like the agents that are calling that type of prospect are not the best of the best. And his agent struck gold and is about to get paid and has an opportunity to make a name for himself. So, yeah. Joey Bosa to the Niners on the cheap, I'd take it. Uh, yeah, I don't know, man. He can't stay healthy. It's tough. York family saving money so they can buy another football team. Yeah, but see, that's the other thing is that if he's selling 10% of the 49ers, I mean, he's going to have money. So, I don't know. Yeah, this one was true with Debo. I don't know that there's teams that are offering a lot. The way it's interesting because the way that he talked about Debo was almost as if there's an opportunity for Debo to come back. But I think the more that I kind of break down what he said in that scenario, it's more of yeah, we'll probably end up having to cut Debo is the way that I see it. Yeah, I don't necessarily know that it means that Greenlaw's gonna leave. Uh, I wouldn't expect him back, but I don't know. I hope you're not done. Chargers, Steelers, New England would love Debo for sure. I don't know that the Chargers would. I don't know that the Chargers would. I think the Steelers and Patriots would though, for sure. Windows closed, yeah. Starting at the beginning and got Jesse on speed play. All right. Nice. This probably sounds pretty weird. I don't believe the Niners have had the worst draft class. I agree with the first round draft picks. Yeah, I don't listen, they haven't been the worst. I broke this down last year, Sunil and I. They've actually been pretty good overall. Not good early, but they've been really good late, and it's kind of made up for it. So, when did you know the Harbaugh era team was over? Was it the 8-8 season, or did you think when Tom Sula became the head coach, maybe there was a chance? No, I think when we had I think it was the prior off season where they had the mass exodus. It was over. I mean, it seemed over. Yeah, a little it is interesting, that Tommy's the one saying that. So does that sound like they are willing to let BP play out his contract? I think that there is a small opportunity for that. I don't think that's the plan. Like, I genuinely don't think that he's trying to play hardball in this conversation. I I think he's just being forthright in the sense that they're not gonna have unlimited money, but listen, that expenditure, if it's the way that I've laid it out, which is they basically are given a full cash salary cap from York, that does impact what type of deal they can offer Brock. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm just going off the report, which is crazy, but whatever. Dave says, Jess, would you do a short Bible study on Sunday with me? Ooh, interesting. In what sense? Like on your channel or what? I'm interested in hearing about that. Hit me up. Email me. I want to know what you mean by that. I'd kick it and read a book with Super Dave anyway. I wonder which team will use Debo's strengths, because if the team picks him up, a regular wide receiver, I don't see that working. I feel like he needs like a Ben Johnson designing plays for him. Ooh, him and Ben Johnson would be fun. Him and Ben Johnson. That's why I think the Ravens are like the perfect team for Debo, because not only do you have the threat of Lamar Jackson, but you've got Zay Flowers, who's your true receiver. You've got two very good tight ends. You've got Derrick Henry. Gosh, I mean, could you imagine Debo going in motion? You got the jet sweep option. You got the keeper option with Lamar. You've got the handoff option to Derrick Henry. You got the RPO option. I mean, geez, man, good luck. If Debo's option number 5 or 6, good night, man. I mean, listen, I don't. Debo wasn't great last year. Like I said, I'm not willing to just say he's straight up washed. When you put him in a scenario like that for a season, I think he can get the job done. I do. That would be crazy. Crazy. So, yeah, I think there's some iffy things with religion as well. I think that's where things get tied up. Bible even talks about it, actually. All right, here's some other things that came from the press conference. Uh Christian McCaffrey was discussed. And I know that we've heard that Christian's basically healthy at this point. But at the same time, when asked about will he participate in all of the offseason things available, John Lynch said parts of the offseason. He should be ready to participate in parts of the offseason. Okay. I don't, I think relying on a 29-year-old running back is going to be hard to do. And I hope that Christian McCaffrey can do it. I really do. But the last time that he had a season like he did 2 years ago, as far as how often he touched the ball, he had two down seasons in a row to get back. If that's the case again, and he's 29 years old now instead of being 26 like he was then, like what are the chances that he has another down season? And what are the chances he's never the same? I mean, I think that this is a pretty realistic possibility. Now, obviously, we know if he's healthy and he's at his best, he's going to be an absolute weapon. Absolute weapon. But the 49ers have got to be willing to make some concessions here and figure that out. Now, is the concession Jordan Mason? He was also asked about Jordan Mason. He talked about all the options there. He talked about putting a low round tender on Jordan Mason, which would mean that the 49ers have right of first refusal. Basically, if Jordan Mason were to sign with another team, accept a contract, the 49ers would have the option to match that contract. And if he left, they would get nothing for him, essentially. But they at least would have first right of refusal. Now, if they put like a second round tender on Jordan Mason, they would get a second round pick if Jordan Mason left. However, it also means that the 49ers bare minimum would have to pay him like $6.5 or $7 million this year on top of what they're paying Christian McCaffrey. So if they do tender him, I don't believe it's going to be a second round tender. I can't see that one happening realistically. I think there's a good possibility Jordan Mason plays elsewhere, but we will see. And quite frankly, I mean, this draft is loaded. So I like Jordan Mason, but they're not going to be able to get rid of CMC. I don't know that you can keep both. And if there's a draft where you have to let go of Mason, this would probably be the one because there are good options available. So there is that. The other thing that was said by John Lynch was Trent Williams. He sounded very confident that Trent Williams was going to play and that he's basically believes that we're going to get the best of Trent Williams, or at least the best effort from Trent Williams. He's upset about how last season went. I question his ankle. I do. The ankle has been an issue for a few years now. They couldn't get it under control. The swelling under control this year. Is that something that can happen again? I'm not sure. But I think it is good news that Trent Williams, at least seemingly, is going to play. I do think that if he did plan on retiring and the 49ers were going to keep it under wraps, that they would do so until they've gone through the draft process. But I don't know. I think that Trent Williams will be back. I was worried about it. I really was. I thought this could be a scenario where Staley retired. We had no idea about it. And it still could be, but it seems less likely. I tend to want to believe John Lynch. I don't know that he wants to just outright lie. But sometimes you have to. So, and I think this is one of those scenarios where he would have to do that if it were in fact true that Trent Williams was planning on stepping away. You can't tip your hand before the draft. So this would be a scenario to outright lie. It would be. He was asked about Jake Moody and would they bring in somebody as competition for him? And he said, yeah, that may be a possibility. We may have to do that. That might be the smart thing to do to basically cover their own bacon, cover their backside, however you want to say that. But he also does believe that Jake Moody struggled mostly because of the injury and that his mechanics were off because of the injury. And then your confidence goes and it just kind of spiraled on him. But they believe that Jake Moody can be a good kicker in this league. Doesn't mean they won't bring in competition, but as far as just outright moving on from Jake Moody, doesn't sound like that is the plan, at least as of now. So be prepared for Jake Moody to be the kicker next year. And let's all hope that it goes a lot better than what it has up to this point. I don't know how much I buy the fact that it's just his ankle that was giving him issues, but the 49ers do believe that. So worth noting as well. Dave says, yeah, live Bible study on your YouTube. Be good for me. Listen, here's the thing. I'm all for a Bible study. But not on my YouTube channel. And the reason is, like, if I was going to do another YouTube channel that wasn't sports related, it would probably be some sort of like Bible study, God related, what have you. So it's not that I'm unwilling to talk about it or afraid to, but as far as this channel goes, once you start messing with the algorithm and putting out something that is completely unrelated to your topic at hand, that's how you just completely screw up a channel. It's ask Ryan, he'll tell you. In fact, I think I said it on his channel when he had me on there for like a little interview. I don't agree with what he's doing. I don't think having a subset of subscribers on his channel that were there for 49ers content and then switching his channel to something completely different is the right move. I think that's how you mess with the algorithm and you screw up your channel. And I think you set yourself behind by doing that. So I'm all for some sort of Bible study. Maybe it would have to be like through the streaming setup that I have. I can do like webinars that won't go on YouTube. and anybody that wants to join, we could do it that way. We can get creative with it, but as far as just flat out putting it on the channel, I would say no to anything that wasn't 49ers related. It's not a smart not a smart move on my part. Yeah, and it has literally nothing to do with that. It's not like I'm certainly unafraid to talk God and or anything. But as far as like flat out doing it on the channel, mm, no, sir. Hey, I'm glad you noticed. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully it's better. Man, I'll tell you this, man. Uh Upgrading your camera and all that stuff is great, but it definitely has its drawbacks. And learning new technology when it comes to that type of stuff, man, aperture and refresh rate and all, I mean, just stuff that I'm not familiar with. Um, it's tough. So getting your lighting right is not not easy to do. It's just not easy to do. Jesse, why has Grant never shown the 100K YouTube plaque? Something I know you and others would show off if you hit 100K. I actually asked Grant about this. So Grant has to wait to apply because he got like a copyright strike. So there's multiple ways to get copyright strikes, but when you have one, you have to be free and clear for a year. I've had them as well. So he doesn't have the plaque because he has to wait to apply. So once he has it, I'm sure he will definitely be showing it off for sure. Um, but I don't know exactly what the date is on that, how long he has to wait. I don't know when that's up, but rest assured, Grant is also the type to show it off, and he should, man. I mean, 100,000 is, dude, that's so amazing. I'm so proud of him, so happy for him. And when he gets that plaque, he will definitely show it off for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me either. I think a lot of us would be totally fine with that. Yeah, for sure. Another piece of interesting news. I brought this up a couple shows ago, but I'm going to bring it up again because it is, although it's not directly Niners related, it certainly has an impact on the 49ers. Um, there's some real heat to this Matthew Stafford thing, more so than what I even thought a couple days ago. So much so that Jake, who I trust, Jake Ellenbogen, runs his own Rams channel. Again, for those that don't know him, he and I do a show along with two other content creators. It's an NFC West roundtable show throughout the NFL season. And I've gotten to know Jake really, really, really good throughout this process. He's just an awesome person, first of all. Can't say enough good things about Jake. But Jake also is the one who, multiple days before it was reported, did say that Aaron Donald was going to retire, and that happened, which was crazy. So he also, multiple days before it was reported, said that the Rams were going to be re-signing Witherspoon. That also happened. So he's certainly plugged in to what's going on with the Rams. And he was saying, hey, I feel like this is going to happen. And he's not saying it's for sure going to happen. But when Jake comes out on his channel and is willing to say things that normally he would just say behind the scenes, that's when I know it's very, very serious. And there's a real possibility of this going down. Um, he came out on his channel and said that he now believes that Matthew Stafford will be traded to the Raiders, probably for multiple picks, not the first round pick, but maybe like a second and a fourth or a second, third, maybe a future first round pick. But he believes that Matthew Stafford will be traded to the Raiders, and he believes that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams will be a package deal signing with the Los Angeles Rams, which is very, very interesting. The way that he put it is Matthew Stafford did go to the team last year, wanted some more guaranteed money, and the Rams basically told him no. This offseason, he wants the deal reworked again. He's willing to take less to stay with the Rams, much less than what he's going to get paid if he goes somewhere else. The Rams, again, have been non-committal. They're not willing to pay him. They're not willing to lock themselves into an agreement, which is understood. I mean, they don't know when he's going to retire. He's pushing that age. And also, Sean McVay is very comfortable with Aaron Rodgers being his quarterback. And so they're willing to let Stafford go. They know they'll get draft compensation for him. They know that with Rodgers also comes Adams, and they're comfortable. They're basically looking at it and saying Rodgers, Adams, and draft picks or Matthew Stafford. And they believe the Rodgers, Adams, and draft picks are the way to go. They believe that they can leverage those draft picks potentially to get their future quarterback as well. And so he believes that Matthew Stafford will not be there. He didn't guarantee it. He's not willing to say that it's for sure going to happen the way that he did with Aaron Donald or with the Ahkello Witherspoon signing. But the fact that he's willing to put it on wax on his channel, I tend to believe that that's probably going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see if it actually goes down. But this would be a major, major shakeup in the division. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best to ever do it, arguably top 5. Definitely has had a better career than Stafford. But Stafford at this stage in his career versus where Rodgers is at is definitely better. But I will say Rodgers in a dome with something to prove, another year removed from injury. You give him a good offensive line, which they have. Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. I mean, Kyron Williams. I don't think that Rodgers would have the worst year. And I think he could get it done there as well. So I do. I find this whole thing interesting. I actually hope that it happens. I like a little bit of drama when it doesn't have to do with the 49ers, especially. And I think that Stafford is better than Rodgers. So I think that potentially helps the 49ers out, depending on, what they get for Stafford. And if they actually bring in Rodgers with Adams, what does that look like? I'm not sure, but I do like the drama. I do like the drama, especially when it's not 49er related. So bring it on, man. Bring it on. Really? I would disagree. I would disagree. I mean, as far as accomplishments go, sure, but we're talking about a multi-time league MVP in Aaron Rodgers. Stafford has never been a league MVP. I don't think Stafford. Maybe there's a year where Stafford's been a top 3 quarterback in the league. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was winning MVPs with Tom Brady in the league. So, and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers has had a better career. Yes, Jesse, I'm at the point where you're talking about Ryan switching his channel. I feel the same way. Keep the channel. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I totally understand what Ryan's doing and why Ryan. I want to be clear about that too. Like, why Ryan is moving on. He's tired of being pigeonholed into 49er talk. I totally get that. However, start a new channel is what my advice was to him. So I hope it works out for him regardless. I mean, I just want Ryan to be successful. But really, the point of me bringing that up was because of the whole Bible study conversation from Dave, which I'm definitely open to, just not here. Do I like Will Howard? Yes, from what I've seen in the games, the only quarterback that I've actually broken down and watched all 22 on thus far is Cam Ward. That's it. And that was yesterday. I watched 3 games on Cam Ward. I mean, he's cool. I wouldn't spend the first overall pick on Cam Ward. I don't think he's necessarily worthy of that. I think there's a lot of things he does good, but if he's the best quarterback in this draft, then I don't know. I would be nervous about that. But yeah, I mean, as far as like Will Howard, as far as what I've seen from him, yes, but I don't want to put a full opinion out there on any quarterback unless I've actually watched the 3 games of film that I normally do and do my write up on them. Cam Ward's the only one that I've done that with, so I'm comfortable talking about him. But yeah, I think Will Howard, uh, what is it, Tyler Shoe or Shug or however you say his name. I think him. Um, Jackson Dart's getting a lot of buzz, so he's not going to be a guy that's drafted that low anymore. But I think there's guys like round 3, round 4 that might be able to do a little something. Might be able to do a little bit of something. So we'll see. No, I agree. Listen, I think Stafford's phenomenal and being in Detroit for all those years. Listen, and the other thing is this is Matthew Stafford, and this is what sucks. When you talk about 2 players, especially 2 players that were really good, it's always going to come across like you're putting somebody down. That is not at all the case. Matthew Stafford is phenomenal and has had a phenomenal career. He How many receivers set records with him? I mean, Cooper Kupp set records with him. Calvin Johnson set records with him. Puka Nakua set records with him. So he's the consistent driving force, the quarterback for all 3 of those guys. He's very good. Hell, even Aaron Rodgers has talked very glowingly of Matthew Stafford. Like, hey, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. And when you talk about arm talent, he was asked a few years ago, what players have the best arm talent in the league? And he named Matthew Stafford as his number 1 guy and said he doesn't get enough love. Matthew Stafford is that deal. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Matthew Stafford didn't get that kind of love. He does have an insane arm talent, but Aaron Rodgers has been the most efficient quarterback in NFL history, multiple time MVP award winner. We're talking about arguably a top 5 quarterback of all time. I'd probably lean more towards yes than no as far as being there. And I don't think Matthew Stafford's top 10. I think Matthew Stafford is, I don't know, top 25 all time. Great, great player, but I don't put him on the Aaron Rodgers level as far as his career goes. Right now, I would take Stafford. Yes. Uh, yeah, I'm not big on Riley Leonard, at least what I've seen from him personally. Personally. Watch Will Howard next. Okay. I wanted to do it in order. I want to do Cam, Fedor, and Jackson Dart because those are the 3 that are probably going to go in round 1. And I kind of want a consensus on which of those 3 is best. But I will definitely get to Will Howard. I will, I promise you. I'll get to Will Howard. I'll get to Shug or Shu, however you say his name. I'll get to him. And I'll get to a couple other guys as well. For what? That's the question. Listen, the Rams approach is interesting. And the fact that they're willing to play hardball with a guy who's won a Super Bowl and is still probably elite in this league. I love it. I love it. I think it takes guts to do it, but not easy. Not easy. It is Shuck. Okay. Thank you. Shuck. There we go. Shuck. Tom knows. Tom's like the resident linguist. He knows everything as far as how to say. I remember last year, like Sua Matia. was like the hardest thing for everybody to say. And Tom's like, it's phonetically, this is what you say. And he knows the he knows the breakdown. Shuck. He's old though, man. God, Shuck's gonna be 26 years old. 26 years old. Now, as far as what he looks like early on, from what I've seen, golly, man, he looks good. But 26? Holy crap, man. That's crazy. Crazy. I don't know. That's what's gonna because I think if you're going just off of his talent and what he shows, he'd probably be like a second round pick, but because he's 26, he's gonna go like round 4 or 5 probably. He's old, man. Old, old, old. It's insane. Which QB do you think has a lot of pressure this season? Kyler, Tua, Darnold, Purdy once he's paid. Um, well, I think the guys that man, I would say Kyler 1, Darnold 2, Tua 3, Purdy 4. I think Purdy's definitely, I mean, there's going to be pressure applied to him from the fan base. But as far as like what the world's expecting from him, Kyler can be driven out of town if he doesn't play well this year. So he's number one. Tua would be 2 years into his deal. He's going to be ahead of Brock. Darnold's interesting because he's going to get like the bridge quarterback type thing. But if he plays really well for a couple years, then he'll be the franchise guy. If he doesn't, then he'll be done for forever as far as a starter goes. So he's got that pressure. I don't think that Purdy has a lot of pressure. I really don't. Yeah, he is. Which is why I think, like, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm saying trade Myles Garrett, get a bunch of picks. If we can get Abdul Carter, that's our replacement essentially for Myles Garrett. And then we can figure out our quarterback situation. So it's still there. I don't have time, man. It's so hard. Like I would love to talk the whole NFL. It'd be a hell of a lot easier than just talking Niners, I'll tell you that. Plus I can talk the whole NFL without the pressure of like being a fan on top of it. Um, but it was doing well. It was doing well, but it's just kind of idle because I just don't have the time for it, man. It's working full time, doing this, coaching my son. It's just a lot. It's a lot. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I think 49ers are going to 49er fans are going to put a lot of pressure on Brock, but I don't know that he'll have internal pressure. Brother, I would I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess I understand through 2023, but last year it was so clear before the trade deadline that it was time to like push past the Debos and the everybody that was older essentially. But they just aren't willing to do it. I'm in project management for a technology company. Definitely not IT. You don't want me being your IT guy. I'll tell you that right now. You don't want me being your IT guy. That wouldn't go well. Purdy in a first. I will say this without watching Shador fits Kyle Shanahan a heck of a lot more than Cam Ward does. That's for sure factual. Dez says, "What's your way too early predictions of the Niners this upcoming season's record? First round playoff loss." Way too early prediction. I'll go 11-6 and losing in the wild card round. Way too early prediction though, but that's what I would go with. Tessa, what's your way too early prediction for the fourth? Yeah, I mean, listen, Shador might be a bust. He might be a bust. Who knows? This one is interesting. I don't know that the 49ers need to grab him, but somebody does. I mean, if I'm looking at Joe Milton and I'm putting him in this draft or up against these prospects, I mean, I know it was like a limited sample size in what we saw, but man, in the preseason and then the limited play he got in the regular season, it's like, dude, somebody has got to trade something for this guy. Like he's worth a flyer. He is worth a flyer for sure. I mean, I look at like if I'm the Jets and you're trying to just figure things out while you're building this thing, hell yeah. Although I doubt the Patriots want to trade him there if they think he's any good. So I don't know how. If I'm the Browns need some sort of cheap option. There it is. There it is. If I'm the Steelers, who else? Who in the NFC would be a good fit for him? Trying to think. Who in the NFC would be a good fit? Giants. Although the Giants, their front office is kind of in a situation where they've got to win this year, so maybe not the Giants. Seahawks, actually. Rams, yeah, good call. Rams. Good call, Stovey. Saints, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Seahawks, Saints, Rams. Yes, I think somebody has to take a shot. Has to take a shot. Me, I'm in Florida. I haven't watched a ton of them. I would say, somebody just brought up Milton. I'd rather take a flyer on Milton, but I don't know. Yeah, I think the Seahawks are a team for sure that should take a flyer on him. I think that's perfect. I think that's a perfect fit because you've got Geno Smith presumably for this year, but you need some sort of next man up type thing. Dude, what's the worst that can happen? He doesn't pan out and you give up a fourth? Who cares? Who cares? Hey, when Bosa's not on the field, he's not cooked. I'll say that. Who would you draft in the first round, O line or D line, or trade down? Well, okay. If the options are just O line, D line, or trade down, give me trade down. Give me trade down. I'm just taking best player available, truthfully. I don't want to be pigeonholed into a position necessarily, but I like the trade down option for sure. Definitely way, 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 way more explosive. Way more explosive than Gino. I'm with it. I'm with it. So all right, y'all. Listen, I really, really, really appreciate you guys for being here. I'll be live tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. Bleacher Report. And then again Friday. I'll post those here per usual for your watching enjoyment. Thank you so much for tapping in. And I'll be back soon. If some news breaks or something crazy happens, I'll be here to talk about it. Much love, y'all. Appreciate you. Peace.